meeting. This is the Thursday, November 13th, 2025 meeting of the Economic Development Commission being held at Woodbridge Town Hall Central Meeting Room. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we will start with our introduction of our planning resource from Teisch Planning and Policy Group. John?
Hi, good evening, everyone. As said, my name is John Guskowski. I'm a planning consultant with Teiche Planning and Policy Group, and we have been recently retained by the town of Woodbridge to help out with planning and development matters. I don't have much of a formal presentation. We're just really starting to get ramped up on this process. Teiche, for folks who aren't familiar with us, which is probably most people, we are a sort of a decently sized little planning group. We have 7 full-time employees who are planners, zoning enforcement officers, wetlands officers, community development professionals, grant writers, project managers, and we really specialize in the needs of Connecticut municipalities, and particularly those municipalities that have been sort of struggling, that don't have really, highly qualified, good full-time staff. A lot of these communities are relatively small, under 15, 20,000 people in population, and have the need for a lot of sort of high-level technical expertise, but not necessarily on a true full-time level. We're not the city of New Haven, we're not the city of Hartford, but we have development concerns, we have development needs, and we need some help with visioning and regulations and process. So that's the niche that we fill. As I said, we do a whole variety of land use support. We are a town planner in a number of communities, probably 18 or 20 different communities. We do zoning enforcement, wetlands enforcement, grant writing, project management, and then for a number of communities do special projects. We're in process of rewriting a number of municipal zoning regulations. We write affordable housing plans. We write plans of conservation and development. So basically anything that's happening in the land use realm in municipalities is sort of what we help out with. So the Woodbridge project will be handled primarily by my partner, Mike D'Amato, who is unable to be with us this evening. He has a conflicting meeting. And myself. We will be mostly available remotely, electronically, available for meetings to come down to Woodbridge to meet with developers, meet with applicants, work on special projects, and then support the Planning and Zoning Commission through all of their projects, application review, work on zoning regulations, implementation, perhaps completion, and then implementation of the plan of conservation and development. But basically, we are sort of an open-ended land use resource to the municipality, and we're excited to be working in Woodbridge. I've always been a big fan of the community. I'm sure everyone notes that they love Katz's and really enjoy the deli there. But it's the concerns that Woodbridge has dealt with over the last couple of years, and even really the last many years, is something that we see in a number of communities, sort of struggling to strike that balance between recognizing that certain growth is necessary, and particularly in the realm of housing opportunities, but it's a real challenge because there's a strong sense of place, there's a strong sense of community, and people move to Woodbridge and live in Woodbridge because they love Woodbridge the way it is, and change is sometimes hard, but our job is to really sort of assist the various boards and commissions and public in the town with understanding the growth that they're facing, and try to make it possible, make it doable, and make it fit so that you're not dramatically changing sort of the fundamental identity of who Woodbridge is. So. That's a lot of words all at once. And what I'd really just like to sort of hear from this meeting is, what are the goals? What are the things that you folks are pursuing? Obviously, you're looking to adopt your POCD pretty soon. And so, I'm really just interested in sort of being a fly on the wall and hearing what the EDC has to say about the POCD, where it's good, where it's lacking, and what are some of the goals going forward. So I'll stop there. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'm also just here to start listening.
That's great. Mika, did you want to bring a couple points up?
Sure. John, from my perspective, in our conversations that we had, one of the priorities that we see is obviously the work that needs to be done in our business district to see what we can do about enhancing and growing our business district.
Mm-hmm.
And I know one of the reasons we chose you is because of some of the information, some of the experience you have in terms of, like you said, working with towns like ours who have some of the challenges we have, like a small district like this. In our district, one of the unique aspects of it is that it is small. It's small like many other communities, and we have 4 different zones set within it. So one of the priorities from my perspective, as we discuss and as I've discussed with Cliff as the chair, is to really see what we need to do about zoning in the business district in order to enhance our abilities to bring in businesses, grow that area, and allow for those elements that will encourage growth and allow for growth in a lot of instances as well. So the commercial aspect of our requirement to grow our business district and our commercial tax base is a priority. And what I'd like to see this commission actually do is take that on as an initiative in the sense of coming up with a deliverable that we can then discuss with TPZ in terms of what can, with the public and with TPZ, in regards to ideas and thoughts on the business district and what we should be doing from a land use perspective there. So,
Yeah, that all makes a lot of sense. And so you were suggesting that you think the EDC should take charge of tackling the zoning particularly, or just sort of fleshing out a vision for the business district,
well,
or that transition. Yeah,
it is that transition, but ultimately I'd like to see an actual deliverable, a tangible document plan, however you want to put it, but something that says, okay, here's our recommendations based on this input. It's something that I expect to take some time. It's something that I really expect to have a lot of public input on, but it is something that I would like to see us be able to start to have conversations with the TPZ or meetings with the TPZ, or present TPZ the ideas however it works best.
Sure. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And the idea being, I think, just sort of procedurally, would be to start with the vision, and the vision could either be expressed, like handed down from the POCD, or something that this commission sort of extracts from the Plan of Conservation and Development and adds a little bit more flesh to, if you will, and then help you kind of draw a line from that vision to the regulations that would enable it. And the idea being, if your vision includes, things that you definitely want to encourage and things that you definitely want to discourage, then it's a fairly straight line to creating the regulatory environment to making those things that you want to see happen as easy as possible, because developers like cost certainty, and they want to know exactly what the town wants to see, and they want to know that if they propose that thing that the town wants to see, that it's almost automatic, that they will get their approval. And then conversely, if there are things that you are definitely concerned about, worried about, you want to keep at bay, then we make those things really, really hard, or prevent them entirely. So it's really that exercise of defining your vision and then writing the regulations to get you there. So yeah, that sounds great.
John, some of the vision has already kind of been created through the work of the 2030 task force over the last number of years. There's a report that they put forward, kind of looking at the business district in such a manner that bringing in some mixed-use development and items such as that to start to enhance that whole area further than what's there. So we have a starting point, and certainly I think from our perspective at EDC, we could take that and kind of roll with it and see which direction we'd like to go further in, and then provide you feedback, and then ultimately, following as Mika mentioned.
We also gave
Yeah.
input to the POCD,
We did.
which I think was pretty good for the things we want to look at in terms of the entire town as an integrated ecosystem, if you want to call it. So maybe that's something we can share
Certainly.
as well.
So I'm sorry, was that comment something that you guys are going to share the notes, or I think I missed the substance of that comment?
Yes, what we had provided for input into the POCD, something I think we should
yeah.
share with you, because it was the EDC's, I don't want to call it our vision, but our goals for
Yeah.
what we wanted to see for the town.
Sure. Okay. And did you guys primarily focus on the business district end of things, or like sort of the business district, and then maybe some of the little commercial areas in town, or?
If I recall correctly, it was definitely part of it, but it was also looking at the town in general,
Okay.
utilizing other sections of town,
Great.
integrating, connecting various things, whether it was transportation or neighborhoods or.
You're
Sorry,
right.
if I forgot all the
Okay,
specifics,
great.
it was some time ago.
And John, this was meant to be, as you said, more of an introduction to you as a resource. We're hoping that because with your experience, you can provide us some direction in terms of how we should move forward on this. As Cliff said,
Yeah.
there's already been some work done in terms of, with consultants. I think that was a peer group who worked with us on that. So there is some things done along those lines. That would be helpful, and we'll obviously share that information with you.
Yeah.
Scott, were you going to say
Yeah,
something?
Yeah, John, hi, it's Scott Hunter. Nice to meet you, and thank you for
Hi, Scott.
coming to the meeting. We appreciate it. We're going to be discussing our POCD later a bit on the agenda, a little bit after and I just wanted to ask you a quick question. I've had a chance to watch you. I know I've seen you on the working group to study sewage disposal. And so I've been watching that, and I know you guys got to produce a report by February of 2026. And, we may see on the governor's desk, so when we talk about our POCD, but we may see on the governor's desk, another study by OPM on wastewater capacity. And I would just love to get your thought for when we're talking about the POCD, how those two studies may be intersecting and how they should or could be part of our POCD process, those two reports that you're working on and the one that the wastewater thing from DEP and OPM.
Yeah, I'm kind of. I hate to answer your question with a question, but I'm kind of curious about that myself, because I had forgotten that House Bill 5002 that the governor vetoed did include that wastewater study that it looks like it's going to be wrapped up into. I don't know what the new bill is called, 8003 or something like that.
I think it's 8002.
8002, yeah, it went by the House
8002, yeah.
yesterday, and they're late on it tonight at the
Senate
Senate.
tonight, yeah.
But-
So it's going to be interesting to see how the statewide wastewater capacity study links up with this wastewater study.
Yeah.
I think the wastewater study that I'm part of is, the bulk of it is really going to look at sort of the science, the nutrient levels and nitrogen management, particularly along the shoreline and particularly in flood prone areas or coastal areas that might get inundated. I think there will be some procedural recommendations, such as increasing design flows for on-site wastewater or alternative on-site wastewater that can be managed or reviewed by Department of Public Health versus DEEP. My sense is it's probably going to mostly be recommendations and kind of nibbling around the edges. I don't expect anything revolutionary. With all due respect to my colleagues on the study, I don't perceive anything truly revolutionary there. I will be curious to see what the wastewater capacity study does to communities that have sort of active sewer avoidance policies. And that to me is a real sticky wicket because, you know, towns that have access in theory to wastewater capacity, they've got a pipe that goes to a wastewater treatment plant, and that wastewater treatment plant has excess capacity or can be scaled. But the community has made a decision to actively avoid extending that sewer line. That for a long time has sort of operated almost independently of the plan of conservation and development process. That, you know, a WPCA can basically announce and decide that they've got a wastewater or a sewer avoidance policy, and it almost doesn't matter what the POCD says. The WPCA seems to operate independently of that. So I would be curious to see if either the overall results of this new housing bill or the wastewater study, the wastewater capacity study, make some recommendations about requiring WPCAs and wastewater entities that control actual sewer infrastructure do have to provide a little bit more consideration for actual growth in the town and perhaps the needs of residential expansion and that sort of thing. So I'm very curious to see how those things wrap together. But because I think that's sewer avoidance, and I speak for a number of my communities that do have access to some sewer lines, but have actively decided to kind of forego that, grapple with some of these new legislative mandates or the new housing planning mandates. So I think there's an important discussion to be had there. If that's, I don't know if I'm directly answering your question, Scott, or I'm avoiding it, but I think that's, to me, looking at making the POCD work with potential housing growth, work with wastewater capacity studies and that sort of thing. To me, it is about rethinking who gets to control sewer expansion and at what level of local government that coordination happens.
Yeah, I mean, in watching some of your sessions on the working group, I just noticed, you know, discussions about ATs and whether it should be extension, you know, and DEP talking about, you know, municipalities having to spend a lot of maintenance if they go with alternative technologies, and maybe sewer expansion is the way to go. And so I was just trying to get a sense on how that, you know, this is going to come out pretty soon, your report as well as the study. If the bill passes, that's going to come out mid-year in a few months, actually, pretty July.
Yeah, it's a pretty quick turnaround, yeah.
So, I mean, I think that'll have a lot maybe to do about, you know, if sewer expansion is feasible, I think it changes the POCD pretty dramatically. If our town is not a bunch of, you know, on sewer avoidance. So thanks.
Yeah, no,
Thanks.
I'm with you. I think it's going to be a fascinating
Yeah.
sprint, I think, to get to all these studies. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. John, I want to thank you for joining us, and we will certainly be in touch in the short term with getting some of this information to you, so we can start working
John, I'll
on these
be in
plans.
touch in terms of outlining a timeline and kind of really working through this exactly. And as I said, it would be
Yeah.
very helpful to have some guidance in terms of steps that we take and what we do to get to the end result that we're looking for. So,
Yeah, no, we're looking forward to that discussion. Yeah, definitely.
thank you very much.
Sure.
Are there any questions you have for us that would help?
I think not at this time. Well, I mean, if you don't mind, I'm going to hang out and listen to your conversation about the POCD. I'm kind of curious to hear that. And then, Mika, I think speaking more broadly, I think you and Mike and I will sort of sit down and
Yes.
kind of figure out what's a regular schedule of check-ins and meetings to participate in, and you know, other key officials that we need to you know, hook up with.
Indeed.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no,
Okay.
if you don't mind, I'm going to listen in for a while.
Sounds good. All yours, Cliff.
Thank you. Moving on with our agenda to item number 3 is to look at the meeting minutes from September the 11th. for approval. Take a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Chatty? Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
Okay. Number 4 is looking forward to the 2026 EDC meeting schedule. Tony's provided that to us. Be the second Thursday of each month, 6 PM. First date would be January 8th and so on, as listed. And we would entertain a motion to accept the meeting schedule as presented.
I so moved.
Okay. Scott?
Second.
Thank you.
I'll be with you in spirit, Cliff.
Thank you, Ken. Okay, any discussion on that? Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, moving right along.
So Cliff, I will file that with the town clerk's office.
Great.
Is there, is,
Schedule?
oh, no, never mind, it's a, yeah, it's a-
Or it's this one.
Moving right along, 2025 draft of POCD update. So the POCD, as we know, has been delivered to Town Planning and Zoning in their last meeting. It was noted that SCROG had determined the draft POCD is in conformance with the regional and state plans for conservation and development. Since it was rejected by the Board of Selectmen in its entirety, 2/3 affirmative vote of the Commission of TPZ was necessary to adopt. Noted no additional public hearing would be held. There were a number of public hearings and information sessions provided by the Board of Selectmen. Pardon me. Adopted POCD has been filed with the State Secretary of the Office of Policy and Management and the Town Clerk. All submitted public hearing will be forwarded to SLR Consulting, who will integrate the comments into the appropriate sections of the draft POCD. Further, the commission members would meet to review and discuss the marked up draft and take appropriate action editing that. That's kind of where we are right now. Said the other important issue that they mentioned was, of course, it would always be a workable document and could be changed as needed, amended as at time in accordance with state statute. Anybody have anything specific to POCD?
Can we get a general synopsis of the comments that the POCD received from folks?
We can certainly make a request to get that, because we were not privy to all of the notes that were submitted from the public hearing. I listened to some of them. I know you listened to them, obviously you were there.
You know, obviously, from the Board of Selectmen standpoint, one of the issues was that there was a component of the POCD, which was the tables that indicate the actions and activities of the different boards and commissions and different actions that would be planned as part of it, that was not included in the draft. So they didn't have that to consider at the time that they were given the draft perspective. Comments from the public were centered around a sense that there was a greater amount of attention paid to development as opposed to conservation. And there was not enough specifics in regard to conservation. There were also some very specific type of errors that were in there with regard to organization names and some general changes that were brought over from the previous that were not necessarily corrected and may have changed from the time that we had it there. So collectively, with all of that, the Board of Selectmen opted to reject it and have the board and give input, and the input they received. I'm being very brief in terms of my summary, in terms of what some of it was, but that generally captures what.
Okay, so all of that is back with SLR for incorporation, let me rephrase it, consideration and incorporation if applicable?
Correct. Correct. And there was also very specific input that was given in terms of like the first 27, I think it was for first 47 pages that were given. And from what I understand, the TPZ at this point in time, working with SLR, is considering that data, has the information that was provided as part of the public hearing as well, and will consider that and opt to take action based on that information.
And the rewrite will go through the same process of review and,
No.
no?
At this point in time, it's to the TPZ. It's up to them to decide what they want to do with it. And as Cliff mentioned, if they have a two-thirds majority vote, they can approve with whatever modifications they feel are applicable, are appropriate.
Okay. And that approval goes to the Board of Selectmen after that?
No.
Or, that's
That's
it?
it.
Okay.
That's the approval for that, and then it's submitted to the state.
Okay.
Basically, if that's what they opt to do, they could also opt to take other action, but that's one of the options that are available there. And if they opt to approve it and they get the votes to approve it, then it does go to the state. And as mentioned, as Cliff did mention, at another time, we can, as a town, decide that we want to amend it, change, do whatever we want to do, as it is a living document, and that has been done in the past. They could also decide that they want to extend it and consider other things as well. That's part of what they can do as well.
And the town committees are or are not allowed to provide additional input?
I believe at this point, everyone has provided the information that's appropriate, including the public, from the time that they opened it up in terms of people being able to input through email and otherwise electronically to the public hearing that they received. So at this point in time, it's up to them to make a decision as to how they want to proceed. Could they open it up for additional information or an additional public comment? I'm not certain on that, Chadi, honestly, but I believe they can if that's the route that they wanted to take, but it's certainly not something they need to do.
Okay.
We knew going in that should we not accept it, or should we not endorse it, which the options was to endorse or reject. Not endorsing it did not mean it needed to be changed, or it needed to be amended, or it needed to be anything. It was up to them to do what they wanted at that point in time. It just meant that it would require a different majority vote.
Thank you.
But I do believe the TPZ does understand that the public input, obviously, we were influenced by the public input as well, Board of Selectmen, in terms of our decision. So I suspect that they will incorporate changes or make the necessary and go from there.
Cliff, on this line item, I think it might be, if we're going to be asked to sort of take a little bit of a role in some of the planning aspects of a TBZ, or at least providing some input into the planning aspects of it, I think it's worth talking about what's happening right now with they've changed we've gone through, we spent a whole year looking at, housing as economic development, and we looked at, taxes and economic development, and housing is part of that. And if we're going to be asked, I think we should maybe start to think about, and maybe this is not the time tonight because it's just only passed the House, but we've got a pretty dramatic planning bill, that's in front of us right now, and it's called growth. Mm-hmm. And it's going to, have a lot to do with what we think about here, and it's going to have a lot to do with the POCD, regardless if the shape or form gets passed by TBZ right now, is probably you're looking at an amendment of that POCD, to reference this bill if it passes. And so that's if we're going to be, we got to start that process of socializing that within our own committee, getting it staffed, and start to talk about if we're going to have input, whether it's zoning changes in a business district, or whether it's any, talking about what a municipal growth plan would look like, and what, if we're going to be providing input into it. So we can have a little bit of a preliminary conversation if you wanted to now. I know you've been watching it, but.
Yeah, and Mika had mentioned at the Board of Selectmen meeting that there is going to be, and you mentioned earlier, the information session at the JCC. That was on the 4th.
December 4th, correct.
So they're going to be providing additional information about this. And I think that certainly while the conversation we had, it would be probably more conducive to that conversation if we were to, at least a couple of us, if possible,
Yeah.
sit through that information session, so we're not looking at it blind.
Right.
That's my input. But, gentlemen,
And as Scott mentioned, this may happen quick. You know, it seems to be being pushed through.
Yeah,
at
the
this
talk
point.
is it's gonna hit the
Yeah.
governor's desk on Friday.
Right,
And,
tomorrow.
you know, I mean, basically, the affordable housing plan debate is over.
Right.
And, you know, it's sort of now, do we opt in and do we start to do something? We're operationalizing our growth and, so, you know, I mean, I think that's where we're up, that's where we are, and,
We have a, as you know, an affordable housing plan. We had it on the agenda for the Board of Selectmen to discuss yesterday. We had a relatively brief discussion in regards to the housing plan, and it was primarily in the context of, okay, so what are we doing going forward, knowing that if looking at the draft, it may change and make our affordable housing plan moot, or it would be replaced by something different. So we did not extend the conversation in regards to that, not knowing what this was going to be. So once this comes out, I think it's very important that, along to your point, Scott, that all our commissions, particularly those related to any kind of land use, understand what it is, because from what I understand and what I've read in terms of the draft, it's a pretty significant change in terms of the directions and the guidelines and the options and choices that are available to different communities. So once it comes out, now that we have the draft, but I don't even know that it's, like, I have a copy of a draft that I can send to you all, but I don't know that that's worth it, because you might get the actual bill by Monday, you know, type of thing, so.
and it's a lot to digest. I read through it, and, you know, Scott said that there's a number of different points of information available for us to look at, kind of as a synopsis of it, and looking at it in such a way that it can direct you to more information. So I think that once we get beyond this passage, if and when that occurs, then we, you know, move ahead with at least gaining more information for ourselves, so we can speak about it.
for our business district, there are a number of options to opt in down in our business district to help
Yeah.
us hit those housing growth numbers. And so lots of options in the business
Yeah.
district, that are gonna require quite a bit of socializing, I think.
I would agree.
And so we might not, you know, I don't know if TBZ is going to be, you know, who's going to take the lead on this sort of program if we're asked to do the planning, but, you know, happy to, if we think about it, how we, you know, it's going to require that socialization to understand what it is, what these programs are, what, you know, options are available to the business district with John and Mika. But I think it's going to require a group of people.
If I might, Mr. Chair?
Absolutely, John. Thank you.
So, yeah, no, so it seems, based on what I understand about the bill, and I suspect it's not gonna change that much. They spent several months crafting this consensus thing that they believe will pass, so I don't think they're gonna change it that much. I think the first big decision that the town is gonna have to make is whether or not, so you won't have to update your affordable housing plan, the 8-30J affordable housing plan. That'll get replaced in its entirety by what they're calling housing growth plans. And the first big question that Woodbridge will have to answer is, do you want to develop your own housing growth plan or participate with the region, with the SCROG region? And that's, I think regardless of if you're writing your own or sort of participating with the regional plan, you'll want to be very, very active members at the table, at the SCROG table, because the way that it appears that it's going to work is that the state is going to come up with the big number for all of SCROG, right? SCROG is what, something like 20 towns.
15.
15, okay. And so they're going to come up with a big number of housing units of all varieties. Let's say 1,000 units, or it's going to be more than that. But and you know, let's call it 10,000 units. And so among those 15 towns, it's going to be up to the COG to try to figure out how that allocation then filters down town to town. So, and then there is a process if, you know, if Woodbridge for some reason decides to go it sort of solo to develop their own plan, independent of the region, and SCROG gives, you know, Woodbridge, you know, of the 10,000 houses, you know, region-wide, 1,000 of them have to go in Woodbridge, and we feel that that's not appropriate, that Woodbridge isn't able to absorb that. Then there's an appeal process or sort of negotiation, but it absolutely behooves the town to be very, very active. You know, Mika's going to have to be a big voice at that table just to make sure that everyone's on the SCROG board understands, you know, our option, you know, our potential, our interests, our concerns, because that's sort of the first big negotiation and the first big decision that you guys are going to have to be facing, and that'll be, I don't know, over the next year, basically.
Right, and if, what I understand, John, is it true that if whether it's a municipal growth plan or whether it's a regional housing growth plan, within that, though, we have to determine some sort of affordable housing goal, which is a number of units that we have.
Yep.
We have to come up with that it's operationalized, and if we choose not to opt in for these growth plans, from what I understand, is it true that we lose the ability to ask for a moratorium?
That's correct. That
Yeah.
you would, yeah, correct. You would lose the opportunity to do an 830G moratorium. Yeah, it doesn't. I read some reference to discretionary funding, but it might just be that we do not get prioritized. We wouldn't necessarily get cut off, but the towns that opt in would have higher priority. So, you know, there is definitely some, you know, some stick to the.
And then there's lots of other options for our business district, you know, incentives to actually get some resources if we're moving in that direction down there, as a town.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And John, I'm not sure if this is the appropriate place for us to have a full discussion as far as the new housing bill is concerned, but I did want to just, one question that you can kind of, even if it's just planting the seed, because it's a topic we will be bringing up with the board next month, significantly. But to that end, I'm just curious, because I did see the timeframes associated in this draft, and it does give towns a good amount of time to react to this. But it doesn't necessarily outline or define specifically what happens between now and then.
No, I mean, there's going to be a lot of things that happen behind the scenes. I think, you know, OPM and Department of Housing are going to have to come up with the big numbers, right? The big regional numbers of allocation. I believe the State Office of GIS, which is also within OPM, has been tasked with, or will be tasked with, creating a rubric and a set of data to help towns determine their buildable area, you know, sort of their construction capacity from a big picture standpoint. And so that rubric has to be set up, and those data, you know, so every town is sort of saying, okay, wetlands is off the table, you know, floodplain is off the table, and you know, kind of figure out what that leaves a town for its development capacity. And then municipalities sort of have to kind of digest what is expected of them and sort of start along that path. I mean, the good news that I'm seeing in the bill is that if you have been making progress from your first affordable housing plan that was adopted a few years ago to now, and sort of between now and 2028 or whenever SCROG's adoption happens, you get credit for that. You know, like if you allowed a significant housing development, if you change your regulations to reduce lot sizes or allow accessory apartments or mixed use or something like that, all of that stuff will count. You can take credit for it, right? So it's not like June 1st, 2028 is like blank slate. We're starting from here. So I think it's relatively good stuff.
Thank you.
Sorry, one more question on POCD. The comments that were flowed down to TPZ, TPZ's edits of the POCD are limited to those comments, or are they allowed to do anything to that POCD?
They're allowed, it's their document.
Okay.
So at this point in time, they have all the information. They've collected everything that goes along with the process. And now it's up to them to determine, to develop the document that they will send to the state in whatever way they feel is most appropriate.
Okay. So there are things in there now that could theoretically come out.
Potentially, yes. Until it's finalized, it's always the case.
Yep. Thank you.
Anything else on that? Great. Moving along to Connecticut Main Street update. The steering committee is going to meet the end of November into December to look again at the assessment to see, in conjunction with 2030 and the connectivity project, where we are. Additional information on those goals are going to be discussed, kind of where we're heading to move along with the assessment and the deliverables that they have asked for. So I think all of that is something that we've looked at and moving in the right direction. Main Street also has a lot of additional information, grant resources that are coming out. There's a grant that's available, for placemaking, for street signage, for wayfinding, things such as that. So we can look at it as we move into the new year and see where this Main Street plan and project is going to take us. And all this is going to be in conjunction with everything else that we're doing. And we were just talking about the business district and possibly making some changes there. Okay.
I wondered, Cliff, it might be good, John, there might be a good idea. There's been a number of planning studies, right, that have been done in the flats.
Correct.
Not just Peary, but I think others. We may want to.
Professor Plattis has one that's still in file that we should consider,
And
because
I
that,
think there's even another one. I mean, because this wheel has gone around every 10 years,
Right.
And so there's been a lot of Main Street thoughts,
Certainly.
and so that would may be good for John to see the historical perspective of mixed use down in the business district.
So can I ask what's your current status and current relationship with the Connecticut Main Street Center?
We joined Connecticut Main Street as a town last year. We had our initial assessment, which I believe was in May. We received that back, and we, starting from scratch, if you will, so our first foray into their assessment program, we did fairly well, according to Carl Rosa there. And I think that they pointed out some things that we have certainly started working on, and we are in the process as a EDC and town-wide to address some of the issues that were brought forward in the assessment.
Okay. And EDC is sort of acted as the primary sort of liaison and implementation entity of this Main Street study?
Correct.
It's sort of your guys' project?
So that's where we're working with now. Some of the plans that we're looking back at have been done, over a period of years. But with the 2030 task force is the most recent study that was done and planned for that area.
what I'll also say, John, I think they were being kind in terms of some of the assessments that they provided, or their way of marking is a little different than what I see. But we also have engaged or recruited a couple of business owners in that area to be part of the committee, if you will, that drives what's happening from Connecticut Main Street. And again, something that very much ties in. We'll give you whatever information we have on that, and that ties into what we're looking for you to help us with.
I apologize for an ignorant question. Is it safe to assume that the main street that they reviewed is essentially in the business district, or was it
It is.
somewhere
No.
else in town?
No, it is
Okay.
very much so, and it's basic from a geographic standpoint. It's Amity Road to Litchfield Road, up to Bradley Road, and a little bit beyond that in both cases, in regards to, on Amity and Litchfield in particular. They're not as engaged in the, industrial park area that's across the other side of Bradley, though we will continue to look at that as, as we do any work on this.
Okay, so Bradley, so I'm just looking at a map, so Bradley
figured.
being, like, it's, the business district is essentially the Route 15 interchange north, sort of parallel along both Amity and
Correct.
Litchfield, and then Bradley is sort of the northern extent of that?
In one area, in terms of having some large businesses on that road, and then it extends up just a little bit more on Amity Road to the professional buildings that go a little north of that, and then again, a little north on Litchfield Turnpike in regards to the professional buildings that go there.
Okay, oh, yeah, so I see, I'm seeing,
Yep.
so Bradley cuts east-west, but then it kind of curves to the,
Correct.
to the north, there's some businesses there, so that part too?
Exactly.
Okay, all right, so it's pretty compact.
It is.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
okay.
what's the acreage? Is it, I think our business districts may be in the 30-acre range, or, it's,
I think it's a little more than
is it
that.
more
I thought
than
it was-
that? But
yeah, I
it's,
thought it
it's,
was-
it's,
it- if
because
you-
we have areas, other residential zones within that area, which you may think of as the business district, but there's residential zones there. And so the actual
Right.
business zones, if you add them up, it's not what one of those, a square mile. A square mile would take
Right,
us all the
right.
way up to the country club and all the way up Amity Road if you did a whole square mile. So this is a very, very compact area.
Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, I see, there's the little residential streets on Manila and Miles, and like, that's sort of in the vicinity, but that's not really part of your district.
Yeah,
You're
that's
talking
more
about
the
industrial
residential.
side. Yeah,
You're-
Dev 2?
Yes.
What's that?
There's a whole section where Mika was talking about Dev 2, which is under West Rock there, which is our sort of industrial area. They call it Dev 2. And that's got some acreage.
That's Lunar Drive, Research Drive.
And
and
it's got
it's
a residential district as well.
Okay, yeah,
in
I'm
there.
with you, yeah, I'm with you, okay. Yeah, okay, thank you.
And that borders New Haven.
Right.
Compact is a good word, so it does fit that.
Yeah.
But we'll send you the information as relates to that too, John.
Great.
Moving into, anything else? Moving into chair update, and then this is actually tying also into Main Street, because on October 8th, I attended the Main Street Center Fall Summit. It was called The Power of Place, Placemaking Strategies for Downtown and Main Street. It was actually very informative. They had this gentleman, his name was Fred Kent, who was the founder of a business called Global Placemaking Movement. He looked at towns all over the world. He's looking at the way that you envision what a town center should look like everywhere from small town USA to big cities, down so far as how wide a sidewalk is to allow for either a dining outside or people congregating. The information that he had was pretty impressive. But what they talked about more so at this summit was looking at some case studies about different communities, different sizes. They looked at the area in the Berkshires. They looked at the northeast corner of Connecticut and different programs that these different areas have put together along the lines of what Main Street focuses on, and coming up with this district and then ultimately developing the district into something more. So they would have, for instance, a development director from the last Green Valley that's up in the northeast corner. They had the Northwest Arts Council, But all these groups have different events held within their main street corridors that bring people in and ultimately increase your economies. I just thought that the whole idea of placemaking is something that we can roll into what we're planning to do within the business district and ultimately, anywhere else where the development's going to be done in town. Because you can look at this kind of holistically as opposed to just, here's going to be a apartment building, or here's going to be a green space for art, or green space for music, or art, or anything such as that. So I just got a lot out of it. It was certainly worthwhile. And then they also further went into they call the ecosystems of a built environment, and looking at different neighborhoods within the city of New Haven and how the different groups within the city, let's say Grand Avenue as an example, or the Hill, how working with their communities have been able to come together, working with economic development and bring more business in, bring more tax revenue in, and also ultimately create a community within a community. So I thought it was pretty good. Afterwards, I had a lunch, and I was speaking with some of the folks from the Westville district who said, maybe we should at some point in the near future get together and talk about, because we've mentioned before, talking with New Haven about this corridor that we've got coming out of New Haven, Westville into Woodbridge, and what do we want to see there, as opposed to their main concern, of course, were smoke shops and things like this popping up all over the place. And how could you create a corridor that is going to diversify the economic development side of things for both their end, so coming out of the Westville district, the village district, into Whaley, and then ultimately into Woodbridge. So certainly a chance to work with some other groups for positive change.
How do we tie into that, Cliff? Did they provide any?
Their biggest thing right now is they have been working with zoning in New Haven about the smoke shop issue. There's, within that small stretch, a mile stretch, there's probably at least half a dozen of these places that they're trying to, engage with the town or the city and say, this is not what this is designed for. And they're, skirting the rules by doing it. They're I guess in conformance, but some of them aren't. Mm-hmm. And they end up going back to the city and saying, these guys aren't following the rules. Let's, do something to enforce the rules that are in place so we can kind of better this whole area for everyone that lives there.
Are they volunteers, Cliff?
They are. There's nobody paid in that particular district.
And how are they funded?
They mostly are self-funded. They do get some grants, but that group was funded within their own association by some dues from the stores, restaurants, and so forth that are within that village district. So it was a pretty interesting concept.
Thank you very much, Louis.
Something I just wanted to mention was the budgeting for 26-27. Received some information from Karen Crosby. I'm going to send everybody out the general description, accomplishments, and objectives for the next year's budgeting. I'm going to send that out before our next meeting so everyone can have a chance to look at some of the accomplishments that were made, 24, 25, and the objectives, some of which I think that we have hit, and some of them that we have to work on a little bit to hit those objectives. But most of them aren't too far off for us to do. But we'll be able to, as a group, look at this and put something forward, maybe even in conjunction after talking a little bit more about what our task will be with regards to these possible zoning changes and recommendations to that. Could or could not be added as an objective, but that's something that we can certainly, as a group, talk about in December. I think it's important that all of us have some input into that rather than just move along with what was there. Tony had a discussion with a gentleman called John Paxton from Monroe Muffler. He was reaching out as a way to promote an idea that they have of donations to drive towards different, whether it be toy drive for the police or food drive or something like this. Tony, you want to mention did anything else come from that?
Well, actually, they had decided that they're going to be working with the police department, and they're going to collect things for the toy drive specifically that's being run by the PD in December. So they're gonna have some way of communicating to, and he's working directly with the officer who's organizing the toy drive. So they will be collecting toys, and if people donate, they do get some type of discount at their business. And then at the day of the actual drive, they'll be bringing the toys to the drive where they load officers' cruiser. And then they also will be collecting for animals, for animal control, like food and things of that nature, as well as our food bank. So they're going to be putting boxes outside in their lobby. I'm not sure exactly how. They said that they really didn't need our help necessarily because they're going to just, they want to support our community. They're going to set up donation spots for people to bring in things, and then they're going to disseminate everything to where it goes. They'll go to our shelter, and they'll bring food to the food bank here
Wow,
as well.
terrific.
So it's just kind of a nice
That's nice.
community giving event that they'll be having.
And
For, I think
ultimately,
it's about a week. I think it's after the week of Thanksgiving.
and those are things that, from our standpoint, I think are important to highlight, whether it be in the newsletter or something like that, showing what some of the businesses are doing for the folks in town. So that's something we can
Well, we're
work
going to
on
get
together.
some details from the police department. I think that the police department was working with them to come up with flyers and things of that nature. So I just emailed the administrator there for something for hopefully the newsletter, and if not, it'll go out through e-news or it'll go
Right.
on our webpage.
The intent is, the town hall intends to support it and make sure people are aware of it, because as you say, it's a great thing for one of our local businesses to be doing. And it is very much in conjunction with the town. It's not that they're just doing something nice. They've approached us to see if they can do it with the town, so I think it's tremendous.
Yeah, absolutely.
And lastly, in this, for the 2030, is my understanding that they were kind of slowing things down to get to that 60% design phase, waiting on the state's answer about potential due to changes that the state had with their regulations, looking at that traffic light at Amity and Bradley, but ultimately that was rejected. But Chad, do you have anything more from 2030?
Just remembered that I attended the September meeting.
Yeah.
So I was going through my notes. I did see that they did talk about the traffic light and that there was an opportunity that our chance of getting it increased, but it just sounded like it was rejected.
That's
Is that what you
correct.
said? I didn't hear that
Despite
part.
the fact that they changed the new guidelines in terms of what was required, and based on the guidelines that they changed, we seem to have met them, but they said it still doesn't meet the parameters that they feel are required, so they did again reject it. They do intend to put, part of design should include some sort of pedestrian assistance, it's called an
Cross 63.
RHB, cross that area there.
That stinks.
I'm going to try another Hail Mary with the
Yeah.
commissioner to see if there's anything else we can do there, because I don't understand it, but we were this close. We were so close. We felt we were in a great spot, and then we got the bad news. We
Does the
just recently received the
Is
bad
the,
news.
is the commissioner familiar with that intersection?
I don't know, I very doubt that very much.
Maybe have him come hang out with us for a little while,
Yeah.
for a couple days, and see what it's
And
like.
with some of the people trying to cross.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. We'll have him cross.
or just trying to pull your car out during
Yeah.
rush hour.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
to-
that was extraordinarily disappointing.
Yeah.
Scrog was helping us on that. We really thought we were in a good place. We had made more progress. We'd gotten farther and we had than we'd gotten ever before. And then ultimately,
Yeah, that stinks.
Mika, I'm sorry, could I ask what program was that you had applied through?
this was as part of our Lot SIP connectivity grant, the $8 million grant that we have for Lot SIP, and we were looking to include a traffic light at the corner at the intersection of Bradley and Amity. And we've been doing this for years, John. We've been trying to get this done for years. And we got as close as we could get. Jim Rode from Scrog has been very much engaged with this with us,
Yeah.
as has, and I don't remember the commission, the Department of Transportation gentleman who we've gone back and forth, that I've gone back and forth with on this.
Yeah.
But that just
So
go on.
You have received, or at least in theory, an $8 million allocation for lots of improvements.
We've
and you
got
tried
it.
to include this intersection, but they rejected that as part of the project.
Correct. They rejected it. The grant, we received, the grant was secured, I believe, in '24. And what
Okay.
we've been doing, we went through different phases. We're right now, we just completed the 30% design phase. And as part of that, we were waiting to see about the traffic light. We had completed our engineering had completed 30%.
Right.
And we submitted it to the state, but we were insisting on the light being a part of the overall design. And so we delayed it, and rather than continuing to delay it and delaying the entire project, when they sent this through, we're saying, okay, let's move forward so we can get to 60%. And in the meantime, let's see what else we can do about trying to get DOT to recognize that this is very important.
Okay. Yeah, I would encourage, well, I'll circle back with Mike on this one. He's been fighting LOTSIP for 3 or 4 years in the town of Wellington to include
Yep.
some pedestrian amenities. So he's been fighting DOT right there with you. So we'll see if he's got any guidance.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Cliff, just to add a couple more, hopefully this makes sense. They are still going through their design process, and they expect 90% of it to be done by the end of the spring. That's what I record. I don't know if that has changed since then. So by the end of next year, they plan on going out for bid. So that's something else. Hopefully, that hasn't changed. They did talk about some public feedback, and they were discussing the option of putting in kind of a raised crosswalk near the Coachman Square to try to slow down traffic in that area. So those are additional notes I took.
Where was that?
Coachman Square,
Oh,
a
yeah.
raised crosswalk across the street.
That's part of the plan.
That was something specific that was brought up at the 30% presentation
Correct.
down at Crest, because they said the number of folks that would want to just walk across the street, maybe have a bite to eat or have their hair done or whatever, would make it that much easier.
And we talked to the people at Coachman Square, and they said they don't bring people across the street because of that. So it's clearly a situation where we need it, and it was included.
Yeah. I have a question about the traffic light. Is the traffic light being rejected just for the grant, or is it being rejected putting it there at all? Whether,
At all.
regardless of where the funding
Period.
comes from? Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
If we wanted to fund it, we could, even if we wanted to fund it at this point in time, or came back with saying that
They don't want it there.
they don't feel a traffic light is required there.
I mean, the number of responses that the fire department has to make down there when they've hit that pole or ended up in the bushes because a car slammed on their brakes to make that left-hand turn. I don't know about everyone else, but I go down that way every morning, and every day there's somebody trying to make that turn, and the accidents, you'd think there'd be many, many more just on the traffic flow and the speed that people are going. When you mentioned possibly putting in a crosswalk with lights. The night of Halloween, we parked across the street at the firehouse, and trying, with the light flashing, you couldn't get across Center Road. You know, people just completely disregarded those flashing lights and flew right through. So, thank goodness we've trained our children to stop and look both ways before we.
I walk there
Across-
just about every day.
Yeah.
And getting across there,
Yeah.
people do not even know what that light means.
No, no. Anyway, moving on. Under new business, Chatty had mentioned after one of the openings that he attended, a possibility of introducing a welcome letter to new businesses from EDC in the town. Yeah, I know you sent us a draft of something you had. I thought that was great, but maybe you want to talk a little bit more about it for everybody else.
Yeah.
The idea.
Yeah, just a letter that says, hey, welcome, you know, it was after the Mantras opening. Welcome to Woodbridge, you know, introduce the EDC to them, wish them well, tell them, you know, we're here if you need them, just a very basic letter.
I think it's
Try
great.
to increase our communication from the EDC side out to our business community, which I think we need to work on.
And from there, that can also, once the final, verbiage is set, that could be something that is a generic letter, possibly on the town website under EDC. I don't think that's too much of a stretch.
There's also other tie-ins that can happen. I know they're doing some they're thinking of some welcome programming, more for residents probably, but it could potentially be extended from a commercial standpoint as well when the community and cultural center is completed. So there's some programs that might be there, so something to keep in mind along those lines. And I know we've talked about sort of a welcome package with information to new residents, and obviously what the commercial owners would be interested in are significantly different than what the residents would want, so we can expand that. Great idea. Thank you.
And I think there could also be some overlap there.
Right.
With reaching out to new businesses and existing businesses for that matter, and letting them know, hey, this is what we're thinking of from the town side of welcome package or whatever ultimately you call it, and they can provide some of their information to be included in that. I mean, it only makes sense. Hey, you're moving into town, you want to stop in, here's a coupon to get $10 off an oil change or whatever.
Right.
You know, just as an example. That's great. So we'll circulate the draft again amongst the commission members and try and come up with something kind of final next month, and then hopefully by the first of the year we can get this into practice.
Do we have like an official letterhead? Or does
Yes.
it- For like
Town
EDC or is
letterhead?
it for the town?
For the town.
Town, okay.
Does EDC have one? No. Can we create one? Probably. Can look at that.
Okay.
Tony?
You could probably have something with a seal on it as well.
Thank you.
Some opening and closings in town. Montrose Market, I know Chatty attended, Mika attended that, I was unable to. I had stopped in prior to the grand opening, I met Julian and been there a couple times since to pick up some produce for my wife. And, you know, the chef's table idea that he's gotten there, I think is gonna be a home run. And certainly I wish him the best, but do you wanna mention anything about the opening?
Met Julian, fantastic guy, passionate about what he does. I've never seen such nice looking produce anywhere. He's got a great selection there. Wish him the best luck. The chef's table thing is fantastic.
Anything from you?
Actually experienced it.
Did you?
Yeah, so we were able to be the first that went in there. It's, the concept is tremendous if you've got a group of 16, 18 people. I
Yeah.
think it's 16 or 18, I can't remember what it is.
I forgot.
But it's a minimum of 6, and then
Mhm.
you can share a table with others. But the food was fantastic.
Yeah.
And the atmosphere
Mm-hmm.
and the inside is such that it's comfortable, and
Yeah.
it's really a fun night in
Right.
terms of, so I'm hoping that it's something that people are aware of and try, because I think if you do it once, you're gonna wanna do it again.
Cool.
It's like dinner at home.
Yep.
but somebody's doing it for you, and he's explaining it to you.
And it's,
Which is-
and it's delicious.
Wonderful.
We had the grand reopening, I'm sorry, go
So I'd
ahead.
just like to mention that that will be, I spoke with Julian as well, we're going to put the little blurb in the newsletter. I sent over the thing I drafted for him, the article, and she's, said, great, just go with that. And we'll be doing, so we'll be, and it'll also be on the website, on our website, on the homepage. And it'll be pushed to residents as well.
Great.
And I hope to, it's on my list of things to do, to create a new page on the EDC, to create a link on the EDC page. To every time we have a ribbon cutting, to have a link to the ribbon cutting article or submission of some sort.
Sure. And through the chamber, they really did a great job promoting that and publicizing it afterwards. So I think that he got some traction from it.
Yeah. And they also did, I think I mentioned, the Amity Eats program. There was it was sort of 17 businesses, but the two businesses who have joined the chamber participated, one being Mantras and the other being the
Charter Senior Living.
Yes. And so and every businesses could elect how they wanted, what they wanted to promote and how they wanted to promote it. And it was just running from November 7th to the 15th. I put a push on the website as well. I didn't get it in time to include it from the October newsletter, but it was out there, and I believe there was an e-news blast about that as well.
I'm sorry, Tony, the thing you talked about, Mantras, that's going into a newsletter?
Yeah, just about just says, Montrez is now open. And then I
Okay.
just gave a little recap about their business and that they had a recent ribbon cutting and a link to their webpage.
Okay.
So that's going on in the newsletter, and it will be also on the homepage of our website
Okay.
and the little e-news blast about it.
Okay, definitely like the idea, but want to make sure that we offer that to businesses that have opened up earlier in the year, if that's possible, if they haven't
We've
already
done
done
that.
it.
We've
Okay,
done it
yeah.
for Atlas. Anybody that's done a ribbon
Okay.
cut at Atlas, Crunch.
okay,
That's
great.
part of the process.
Thank you.
We had the grand reopening of Charter Senior Living. I couldn't make that event due to obligation at work, but had an email and a nice note from Barry at the chamber, how impressive it was. They were very pleased with the turnout that they received, and I've since visited and was pretty impressed with the improvements and upgrades that they had made. I don't know if anybody was able to attend.
I was able to get over there after a little bit late, unfortunately, but it was very nice. It was actually something that was important to me because my father-in-law had been in the memory care unit there for quite a period of time, and it was he's since passed, but had a chance to see the building and get a walk on through, and it's just really a terrific place. I think that when they got there, maybe they thought that I was going to be moving in there. And I might like to, but it really was very nice.
I also attended. It was well done.
And my understanding of, from a conversation that I had with these folks is that they've got something like 85 plus minus percent occupancy now, but they say that after the first of the year, after the holidays and so forth, they really get an uptick in people wanting to come in, take a look at not just charter, but any of the assisted living type facilities, because that's when folks are visiting their parents who are aging
Oh, gotcha.
and say, geez, mom and dad might need a little bit more than we can provide. And so after the first of the year, apparently they
Interesting.
have an uptick in their numbers. Something interesting. The bagel shop on Amity Road, I know everybody is eagerly anticipating their opening, and had a chance to talk to the owner and his wife. One day I stopped in, and he has a long history in the restaurant business, and he said he always wanted to have a bagel shop, and so he kind of retired and then jumped right back into this when the venture presented itself. So they're hoping end of November, early December for their grand opening. And I know that he's been speaking to Tony a number of times.
Daily bagel.
Daily Bagel.
Everybody's looking forward to it.
Everybody's like, including me.
And lastly, we had a business stop in, talk to Tony, gentleman from Zap Technology, which is a business operations consulting business here in town. He worked out in New York, just off their website. I've gone back and forth a couple times by email, but we haven't been able to connect to see what his plans are or where he's going. But just another business that has popped up in town. Okay.
He's not yet found a location? Is that what
I
you're
think he's working out of his residence.
There's a business that I know is opening up, it's just coming to town, Mathnasium. It's another new one. It's, I think it might be someone we reach out to at this point in time, just to touch base with.
And they've been involved with, I think they were here for Halloween, they were here for Woodbridge Like Me,
Yes.
and so they're out there, and they started out, I believe it was in Orange, and they opened up another, or maybe it was Milford.
It was Milford, yeah.
Milford, and then they opened up another center here, so that's great.
Right, her reason is because there were so many Woodbridge residents that were traveling to Milford. And she just thought it would make sense to attract more Woodbridge residents to her business.
So there has been a pretty significant influx of new businesses over the course of the last year or so.
Indeed.
You think about, from the time that Crunch came in, Harris is there, Harris is in there now, Daily Bagel, Zap, Mantras. There's a new corporate office is going into the Citizens Building that's now, says that it's leased. So there's a good deal of activity. On the downside, obviously the social close, which was a big thing, and I know that she's, I've talked to her already, and hopefully we'll see what we can do about helping in any way we can in terms of getting somebody in there.
There has been some, my understanding is some interest in there, but
Yep.
we'll see. Okay. Anybody else have anything for new business?
Can I bring up something?
Absolutely.
I'd like us to consider some additional meeting time. Maybe, a couple special meetings where we focus on one specific item. Definitely would like to see us pick up the pace when it comes to reach out for our businesses and coming up with plans for retention and attraction. Each one of these meetings would be very specific. Maybe if we can come up with an outline that kind of gives us a vision of what we want to do for the community, so we can kind of maybe move a little bit faster within the EDC. So if other people are up for it, maybe an additional meeting a month, if that, where it's very specific, one topic that we talk about. Special meeting. I don't know how we coordinate that. If people don't have the time, that's fine too. But if we want to, I'd be willing to do something like that.
I had a fast conversation with Dale the other day, and he's going to join us in December to kind of pinpoint a couple of these items that we've talked about and try and give us a little bit more guidance and direction. So maybe after that we can start into that cycle. That way we can see, especially with regards to retention and attraction of business.
Yeah, I would see a lot of value in that, actually. And don't forget also, you're gonna have a few new faces on the commission that will have the chance to blend in, because there's a lot to know, there's a lot to learn,
And there's a lot to do.
and there's a lot to do. Yeah.
Next on the agenda is public comment. If there's any public comment?
Nothing came in.
Public comment, seeing none. Moving on. Our next meeting is scheduled for December 11th at 6 o'clock. We can, again, Dale will be here with us at that meeting. Okay? So, yes, sir.
No, I was just saying, thank you, John.
John,
Yeah,
thank
no,
you very much
It's
for joining us.
Great to meet you all, and Miko, we'll be in touch soon.
Sounds good, John. Probably tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Right.
Thank you.
We
Thanks,
would,
Rick. Oh, wait,
Rick?
motion
No, I'm
to,
still here. I'm still here.
Okay, we'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Chatting?
Second.
Scott, all in favor?
All in favor.
Thank you.
Bye.
thanks, everybody.